If you're nodding your head, we can't see you.
Yes, sounds like they can hear us.
Oh,
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we have gone around the room and done introductions, so would the online community like to let us know who you are? And then we'll get into our agenda. Online introducks?
Sure, I can start.
Travis on my audio team.
Adam
Dave Cody, City of Bellevue.
Adam Denny, Felsberg, Colton Olevig.
Dan Carpenter, Benish.
Greg
Andy.
Walker, FHWA.
Andy Witt, City of Council Bluffs.
Joan Green, ENA.
Kane McClellan, NDOT.
Anybody else online that has not introduced themselves? Okay, hearing none. Our first item, action item, is the approval of the February minutes. Those were included at the front desk here, and I believe available online. Is there any questions or discussion, comments about those minutes?
We also have Scott Sir, DOT online, he's not able to unmute. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Is there a motion and second to approve those minutes?
Motion.
Motion. I will second that. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion is passed. Our first action item here is the draft MAPA 2026 Unified Planning Work Program. The open comment period on that, and Carlos, are you presenting that?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll go through, this is our yearly work program for MAPA. Overall, we're gonna go through some of the funding, a little bit more background of what this all means. So MAPA's budget is federally supported for transportation planning activities. It serves the basis of receiving our annual apportionment of PL and FTA 5305D funding. Majority of the bulk comes from Nebraska with 92% and 8% coming from Iowa DOT. So timeline wise, our draft UPWP, this is part of our spring process. We bring it before TTAC, take it to board, approve the drafts, send off this draft to both states as we're a by state agency. Each state has a month to review. We get comments back from our Fed, FTA, and state counterparts on our work program. And then we come back in May and do the final. This sets the budget for MAPA. MAPA's PL funding, or the transportation basis, covers roughly 80% of our total budget. Next slide. So here we'll see a little budget breakdown. We define our budget, at least for transportation and PL dollars, as something internally that we call above the line. These are staff activities, federally supported planning activities performed by staff, which includes 4.6 million in total federal funding. This is both sides, all monies. 2.6 in new funding, fiscal year 2026, and 2.2 million in carryover funding. From this, we have about 1.5 million in matching funds. This includes in-kind match. This includes our aerial photography for the region, match from partners. So when we have Partner 2050, some of that match money is used to help match these funds. MAPA cash match, that is the in-kind and MAPA cash match is paid from dues. And then NIROC, that's our aerial photography. So overall, direct labor includes about $914,000. Fringe, indirect, and direct non-labor comes out to about a total of 6.1 million. Next slide. So this year, a little bit different than previous years. The MAPA activities have been broken down into 4 main categories. MPO, management, administration, staff training, etc. regional transportation planning, TIP and local projects, and complete streets. This is a little bit different than previous years where we've had up to 12 different categories of where planning activities will take place. This facilitates easier administration both on the state side and at the local MAPA level. Thank you. You're welcome, Travis. This year, as well as last year, this complete streets line item accounts for 100% federal funding. So this is why you'll see a 95% federal share instead of the traditional 80-20. Next slide. So colloquially, this is what we call below the line. So activities up above the line in our budget table indicate activities performed by staff and staff members of MAPA. Below the line are pass-through contracts or other contracts that MAPA has taken a hold of. These include regional planning activities such as data services, working through our LRTP, on-call modeling, 5310 sub-recipient, and some of these specialized studies such as the Council Bluffs PEL study that's currently going on and will continue through next year. So overall, these are below the line and usual contracts that we're trying to see. Many of the contracts that we tried to initiate this fiscal year are being carried over to next year due to some contracting issues. Many of these are the Heartland 2050 mini grants that we hope to engage and initiate early in 2026. This will be facilitated through an on-call planning contract that we've been working really hard to get through and hopefully reduce the administrative burden for everyone involved. Next slide. Actually, could we go back 1 second? One of the things that we do not see here and will probably be a difference between what we present here at the draft stage versus the final is 2 discretionary grants, both being held up by federal situations right now. We have a $2 million Reconnecting Communities discretionary grant that's supposed to come into the region. We were awarded. However, we have not initiated any of the program agreements necessary for us to feel certain that we should put it in our UPWP. The other one is TRIPS, which this group and staff supported a while back. They're notified of award. However, we have not heard anything back from our federal partners. We're gonna give it a little bit of time. If those do come through, you'll see these likely increasing the total 3.7 by about 4 million total, right? So about 7.7 in pass-through contracts for the next year. Next slide. Finally, this is our final overview. We'll submit this to both Iowa and Nebraska for their approval. This includes almost a 25% federal share. What were we saying on this one? Totally forgot. Final documents will be back in May. This is more of a timeline. I think that wraps it up, and I would take any questions if you have them.
Questions among the group? Anybody online? Okay, so we'd be looking for a motion and a second to pass that draft. I'll motion. Okay, we got a motion. I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And next item, court is going to present amendment 5 to the TIP.
Yep, pretty simple amendment. I'm basically just moving some funding that was programmed in last year's TIP into this year's TIP because it didn't get obligated. So there's just under 300,000 of 2023 FTA 5310 funding that's being moved into this year for programming, and then about 450 of 2024 5310 funding being moved in, both of them for Nebraska vehicle purchases. They're all projects that were previously selected and programmed. There's no real change to what we're doing. It's just we didn't get the funding obligated last year, and it's got to be shown in the tip in order to move those things forward this year. We're asking for a favorable recommendation to our board.
Okay, is there any questions on that? Motion to approve.
Who's taking it?
Right. You can take it now. All right, there we go. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. We'll move into our discussion items. Is there anybody from the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment at this time? Okay. Moving on, Carlos is going to discuss the population allocation land use for the transportation demand model.
All right, so as part of our long-range transportation plan, or as it's now called, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, MTP. Part of our work efforts and required documentation is developing a travel demand model, which many of you know and use throughout the region. We're updating this information. I think a couple months back, you saw one of the first inputs, which is how or what is the population going to grow for the region by 2050. We presented some of that information and our crosswalk on what we chose and how we chose it. This time, we're gonna look at parcel information. So this is just a quick timeline of all the steps we've been taking and presenting. Right now, we are in the January-March where we're looking at future land use allocation. And understanding where the future growth can and might be able to occur. Next slide. Again, going back, some of the projections that we have or we're looking at are a little bit lower than the last time we took this on. We're seeing a dip in the total population growth, so the growth rate has slowed down for the entirety of the region. Previously, we were estimated to have 736,000 people in Douglas County. Now it's projected to be more like 686. What factors have had an impact on that? Some of the things that we've noticed is the targets for that original projection rate were not met in the decennial census. So in other words, when we made the projections back in 2015 for our travel demand model, the projections showed a higher population base by 2020 based on the census data. That number, we did not hit that high projected number. We were below, therefore it's affecting our rate, and now we have a lower expectation of future population. And this is throughout the TMA region. Next slide. We'll go through Sarpy County again, a little bit different. We're seeing a significant change of 40,000 less population projected by 2050 than we did the last time. So this is a reminder, hey, some of the population projections from the last time we did our travel demand model were a little bit higher. There was a lot more positivity. Now they're a little bit lower, more tamed. Hopefully we'll see what that means. Next slide. Again, this is for the entirety of the metro area. About 100,000 less by 2050. All right, let's talk about future land use allocation. So this is a parcel-based data set for the existing land uses in 2019. So a lot of these information is taken from all the local communities and asking for their future land use or their existing land use allocation as it currently is. The yellow, just to bring out a couple of key things, single family residential. Some of the purple is kind of the institutional The blue, industrial, light industrial, green, agriculture, or parks. And I think this was the existing land use as of 2019. Next slide. This is what it looks like in 2020. What applies some of these changes? I think some of the things that we're learning through this process have been how we're codifying or coding some of these things. Previously, some of the green agricultural fields weren't quantified to have existing building structure. This year, when we looked at it, we made the determination that it does have single family structure. So some of it is data availability and data awareness that has happened. And so that explains some of the expanded yellow throughout the region. Next slide, and Jim, please stop me if I got something wrong on this one. So based on that, we also developed our future land use plans. This is what it looked like in 2019. Let's see. Again, this is derived from the local communities. Local communities provide us their most updated future land use plans. Did that prior to 2019. This is for this year, 2025. This is what it's looking, right? So one of the big differences, as you can see, is towards South Sarpy County, a little bit more industrial, commercial spaces in and along major thoroughfares and arterial roadways. Further expansion of single family housing to the main drivers. Next up in our process is developing a future grid of existing development. So where is development occurring currently today? So we use this as part of our how do we allocate the future population? We have to figure out where to place them. This is just to put some constraints on that, right? So we use this future grid of existing development where things already exist, so we will less likely place population in those areas. Next slide. Then we look at future constraints. So this includes natural, historical, cultural, and environmental resources. So you can see one of the biggest differences and constraints is the new floodplains and the new adopted floodplain maps that just hit the region this past month. So what does that mean? These are areas where we are less likely to see development in the future and not likely to allocate future populations in because they're prone to floods. They're already built up as a highway, freeway, arterial road, or it are parks and or areas of natural or historical significance. So less likelihood of those areas being able to accept additional growth into the future. Next slide. And this leaves us with the future grid of available acreage. So we take what's constrained and then we do the inverse to show where we can place the future population. So these are areas of opportunity where roadways don't exist, where there is no floodway interacting with this. These are areas where you can see some of the future population development. We're also adding within our grid network the available acreages. If you go to the next slide, this we're talking about the next slide. The Sarpy Sewer Project basis for development of the Sarpy County will open up areas in the south for additional and potential suitability for housing and employment in the future. And that's where we're at. So all this is necessary for us to start calibrating and understanding the model. The model will help analyze some of the future traffic conditions or pull and push factors with regards to employment, population, and current transportation investments. Questions, comments?
Carlos, is Western Mills County in the MPO already, or is that something you're anticipating for the future? Because I noticed there's that sliver to the west of I-29 that's Mills County.
Right, we added it, we did add it to add, additional information. We do know there are quite a bit of, near future investments taking place. I think the mega site is within that region and we anticipate a lot of push and pull factors there. And so we felt it appropriate to understand that a little bit more, rather than just cut it off.
Yeah, Travis, this is Jim. A couple other things, working with Iowa DOT, some of their external stations for traffic flow coming in, that includes all of I-29 corridor and also the US 34 coming into Nebraska. So it just better accommodates and brings in that traffic flow that we see through the region and coming in through the MPO.
Cool, that makes sense. Another thing, just your population trends going kind of being less aggressive than your previous year. That's following kind of a statewide trend. A lot of our big MPOs statewide are noticing that their models from 2010 also didn't hit the population thresholds they thought they would. So you are consistent with your peers statewide in lessening your projections for 2050.
Piggyback on that, so the population projections, are you reviewing and maybe submitting some sort of update along with this transportation demand model update? How does that relate to like the Heartland 2050 MAPA projections? Because I know for like our utilities, we use that projection for our future population. So is the data going to be available and updated to use that for?
Yeah, I think,
removing?
yeah, look, when we started looking at this, traditionally we've used the CPARS population trend data that comes from the State Data Center from Nebraska. Their projections were even more aggressively lower. So we went out and looked at a different population model. The main difference is both of these are future projections based on a model. One is a natural birth, whereas the other one is taking into consideration national economic data. So we're using the Woods and Pool data this year. We felt it wasn't as aggressive as the CPAR data. And we felt that we might be able to do that, knowing that Iowa does use Woods and Pool. So we felt confident in being able to use that. This year, as far as Heartland 2050 and the number of populations, I believe those are derived from our travel demand model. So those will be updated. Unless I have that wrong, Jim.
No, that's right, and it will also show kind of where we anticipate that land use allocation to go. So both single family housing, but also those employment, where a lot of those employers tend to have pretty large loads as well.
And this is the point in time where we are asking to work with our local communities. Look, there's a lot of assumptions behind this, right? One, we're using a population-based model, right? As with any model, there's a lot of assumptions that go into that, right? It could be high, it could be low, or it could be just right. We don't know. It's the Goldilocks on this. Part of the allocation that we do for the population is we're using the best known number that we have, and we're trying to pick out the best available land use that can accommodate that growth. Will we get it perfect the first time? Most likely not. That is why we're asking our partners to help us out. So I think this is gonna be our plug. At RPAC, we hope to have our first set of population allocations for future year projections. And we invite planners and engineering staff to come out, do a little workshop with us. We're gonna separate it out to a couple different segments, one looking at Sarpy, one looking at Douglas County, and the rest looking at Iowa on the Potawatomi Mills. and we're gonna do a little exercise to see, hey, we're gonna take a first stab at the suitability of placing some of the future population growth. Did we get it right? Help us verify, help us think through what we should have in consideration. That is coming up on in 2 Fridays from now at the RPAC meeting. I think it'll happen right after the traditional RPAC meeting here at MAPA. So big plug for that. Tell your planner nerds to come out for that and help us out. This really is more of an art than specifically a science. Trying to get this right, we'll never get it right. There's always things that change, always things that we can't always anticipate, right? There is still a Star Wars project going on in the state that looks to expand some of the recreational opportunities and bring in additional tourists. But how much is that really gonna materialize? We don't know, right? So more to come, additional questions?
Yeah, we've got one question online from Scott Sir with Iowa DOT asking, how did you classify the Lost Hills in Iowa? There have been homes built, but we will not use for barrows.
We'll have to get back to you, Scott.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I guess I'll start with the classification that we get from that parcel data comes to us from the county and from the local jurisdiction. So, but we can definitely look into it and see what exists there for classification. I'll just reach out to you separately and make sure we're answering your question.
So quick follow, what was the name of the meeting that you're gonna hold after the RPAC?
The RPAC,
I don't think we've given it a formal name. It's just gonna be a
workshop.
Allocation workshop. Yeah, we want to get your input on our progress on the model.
And then just not hold you to it, but just timeline of when you think you're planning to have the update complete.
So right now we're looking at, I believe June would be the earliest we could have the model tested and calibrated. So after doing all these population projections, we run the model based on existing data to calibrate and see in ground truth. So that's kind of one of the bigger steps coming up after all this. One, we have to get the allocation of population as close to good as we can. And then we go through and run the model a couple of times to calibrate and see what's going on. Tweak things that need to be tweaked, do our post-processing to ensure that it provides something that's reasonable. And then we will likely have a completed model near June. And then that becomes our official model with a base year of 2022. So right now with everyone making requests of, hey, what's the future traffic projection and what's the travel demand model saying about this intersection? One of the things I anticipate with the lower population numbers, with some of the different growth patterns that we're seeing, some of those previous projections might be higher than what this new output will be. So just word of caution, we're working through this, trying to understand it ourselves as we do this, but once every 5 years.
Yeah, that RPAC meeting will be on April 4th.
Oh, okay, so right after.
Yeah, noon to 1 on the 4th.
Right?
I was just gonna ask how the model, how population is allocated to parcels that are already developed, so, redevelopment, especially downtown areas where the city has a lot of things going on. Is that taken into account through this process, or is that accounted for differently, or?
That is because we're only showing the available acreage. I think that can be a scenario that we look into. Obviously, just because the site is built up doesn't mean it cannot redevelop higher, right? I think we'll go through a couple iterations of this possibly one that looks at if we continue the current growth that we are seeing today, right, from our existing. This is what it would look like. A scenario can be if we concentrated our growth patterns towards more of a city center allocation, what does that look like? And what does that do to the network? And I think from the original one, that was an MTIS scenario that we looked at.
Yeah, we'll include, we'll look at TOD development as well as the streetcar, road potential for that development. Yeah, and the suitability more broadly is based upon a number of criteria, and we'll definitely go through those during that RPAC meeting as well. It would prioritize, potentially prioritize that growth in those areas.
I also wanted to move on to either as we're developing new areas as we come out of like City of Omaha's comprehensive plan, taking in potential density level changes. How can that be taken in from, because what has been developed in the last 20 years to what might be developed in the next?
So there's a lot of things going on right now. Springfield just finished their comprehensive plan update, as did Redwood, which were pretty significantly recognized. The City of Omaha is updating theirs. We just have a 5-year time frame to work with. I would love to say maybe there would be a way to be more flexible. We're gonna have to take more regular looks at our model and how it's performing, and we've definitely set ourselves up in our recent on-call we have 2 consultants on board and just allocating more funding, realizing that we need to be more responsive and take a look at it at a greater, a shorter interval than 5 years, which is how we typically done. So yes, there's already an expectation that MAPA will be supporting the model for the comprehensive plan update for the City of Omaha.
And just for the City of Omaha, we'll pass on the bill. I'm kidding. Any other questions, concerns? So this is one of the major MAPA products that we do produce every 5 years, and so if you have additional questions or they occur to you afterwards, like, hey, Carlos, this didn't really make a lot of sense, you didn't explain it correctly, do your job better. Feel free to email us. We'll get back to you with a lot more rigorous detail about all our processes that we've taken thus far. And happy to walk anyone that has an interest through what we do and how we do it. So thanks, and I think that's it.
Okay. Well, item E, Carlos, I have here that Mike or you is going to present, and I don't see Mike, so I'm assuming you're still on deck.
Yes, it's me.
Okay.
We're doing policy updates.
This is state and federal policy updates.
So I think one of the key ones is coming up here on the Nebraska side. This is the automated enforcement and red light violation, red light running violations, particularly looking at schools and work zones. That hearing is coming up March 28th. Last time we were here, we're gonna remind everyone, anyone that wishes to attend, please let us know. I believe a delegation, when I say delegation, I mean Mike Helgerson from MAPA will be attending. We would like the added support from your local enforcement and some workforce for work zone planning. It's a very important issue within the region. And again, helping us meet some of these safety targets and goals that we have for the region. Again, if you or anyone you know would like to attend, please contact us. We'll coordinate and arrange additional things. So that's on the Nebraska side. On the Iowa side, one key thing that's happened since the last time, the hands-free bill SF 22 on the Iowa side has cleared the Senate 47-1. It is now scheduled to go to the House as early as Monday, March 24th. Is the last I heard. Basically, that means anyone making a phone call would be a primary offense. That police would be able to pull over people that are not hands-free. Lots of information, lots of excitement going for that. and that is moving forward. I don't have any updates on the rest of those bills. Next up, I'll let Elle talk about the TAP RTP full funding and take it away, Elle.
Okay, so recently MAPA was made aware of a bill that would adjust TAP funding in order to more fully fund the RTP. And that little table on the side is the current allocation of Nebraska and Iowa TAP funds and what they would be after this, if this were to be enacted. And then, so MAPA was alerted that the bill would decrease the amount of TAP funds that were available to states significantly for multimodal transportation efforts. However, it seems that the bill is actually aiming to fully fund the RTP through the recreational vehicle gas tax and sort of a restructuring of that and not actually decrease the amount of funds that would be typically available to states through the TAP. So basically the amount of RTP funding would go up, but the amount of funding through TAP would not go down. But so MAPA currently doesn't have an official position and will continue to monitor the RTP full funding after 2025 as more information comes in.
And this is a federal bill that was proposed, so this would be at the federal level. And so basically, when you're looking at that table, that percentage increase, that would be overall increase to TAP that would end up going to RTP, but like basically the total amount of TAP will go up, at least this is our understanding at this point. But that increase will be pushed up to RTP, so there effectively wouldn't be a change to the TAP allocation for urban areas and for the state.
And I think the subtle nuance behind all this is they're testing to see what states at the federal level. One of the key things to know about recreational trails funding is that it's a set aside of TAP, mainly made up of a set aside from the TAP portion, but also funded through recreational gas tax. So as the number of recreational vehicles has increased, that tax rate has not increased to represent that. And so that level of tax rate or the level that they established back in 2009 is still in effect today. And so that's kind of the basis of the bill, like, why are we basing the amount of money for recreational trails based on 2009 levels of gas tax for recreational? That's kind of what it boils down to. Looking at how to update that information to be more current.
So how would RTP funding moving specifically to recreational trails programs affect potential on-street infrastructure?
It's a set aside.
Okay.
So if we're not deleting or removing from TAP, the TAP allocations that come directly to MAPA as a TMA will still continue to come. The portion that at the state level for the state TAP will continue to be until there's a new transportation bill. It's just the total funding available for rec trails for the entire state will also increase.
And sorry, that's through the state TAP side, but not through the MAPA side? Because does MAPA TAP have a rec trails program to the side?
No, our RTP goes to the state and it doesn't go to NDOT, it goes to
Game
Parks.
Game
Yeah,
Parks.
right, okay. Right, so it would not generally impact MAPA's TAP.
There's not a specific set aside of RTP that goes to urbanized areas.
Okay, got it. Appreciate the clarification. So it's very confusing as of last
It
month.
was very confusing, I do agree.
Yeah.
Any additional questions, concerns? If you have them, send them to Elle, she's been doing a good deal of research on this. Appreciate all your help with that. And we're done.
Okay. With that, we are at member agency updates. We do have time, so. Yeah.
We just start,
Do you
okay.
have anything you'd like to share?
Hopefully by the time the meeting is taking place next month, all of our construction will be done outside. That'll be a good thing. Otherwise, I don't have any other updates.
We're gonna get our contracts out to all of our contracts have been let, and we're working on pre-construction meetings, getting those contracts started. So the major ones are Q Street west of 192nd. We got some major grading going on 168th Street north of State for future widening up there. Ringwood Road to the west, and then with the Bennington bond issue passing in their new high school, we'll be working on several infrastructure improvements involving that high school. So those are the bigger projects in Douglas County.
Further updates from last month?
Just quick update on work at the airport, the canopy that's out over the front drive, that work should be finished up in May. Actually, the roadway work is all done, only the canopy, glass and cladding and electrical work is finishing up this spring. What will happen is traffic will remain in the garage like it is now for pickup and drop off, because the center part of the terminal, which closed about a month and a half ago, which was on the news for the beginning of demo, that demo is going to go into full speed here in about another month, because our new central utility plant is being commissioned right now to be online in April. And then our old central utility plant, which is in that center area, will be demoed out, and we'll start the rebuild or building up that multi-story center pavilion of the terminal. The concourse that's going to run along the east side of the terminal, the long linear concourse with that is well under construction now. They're pouring floors and all that's come from the south to the north, and that will continue. The whole central pavilion area will be open probably at the end of 2027, and then in 2028 we'll be doing the very north part of that. But the actual new TSA check lines and the concessions and all that that are in there will open in late 2027, maybe early 2028. So construction is going well and it's moving along, and our big thing is just appreciating the patience of the public with the mess that you have to go through when you park or when you drop off to get to your gate, get to fly out. So it's a challenge.
Dan, are you getting any negative feedback? Are people frustrated, or are they understanding and appreciative?
In general, they're pretty appreciative, but we still have people who have bad experiences out there. Some of it is related to, it's generally what you see in town here with labor shortages or issues. So that's the airlines are in charge of the wheelchair pushing and to get people over. And we've had some struggles with that, and people's complaints on that have been well founded. We're trying to work with the airlines, but the problem is they get call outs when they get 3 or 4 people who call out. There's not enough people to push wheelchairs. And so when you get dropped off in the garage and you got to get your gate, that's pretty far for most of us. We're, well, okay, it's a little bit of walk. We go to Chicago or wherever, we walk far. But if you're confined to a wheelchair, it is considerably difficult to get out there. And sometimes it's hard to get people to come push you. So that's probably been the biggest struggle, and what we feel we've been somewhat deficient, but we're working. It's always who's responsible, but in the end, someone has a bad experience, it's bad.
Yeah, that's interesting feedback. Thank you.
I personally appreciate the Uber shared services line only. I know a lot of major metros have been moving towards getting those a little bit further away, just to decrease some of the congestion for localized traffic.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Our long-term plan, that's on that west side of the garage now. That's gonna move to the east side where that drop-off lane is. That first drop-off lane, so people taking Uber and Lyft would just be able to walk across the garage right there. It's already set up as a drop-off pickup area. Had heaters put in about a month and a half, 2 months ago, push a button, came in just in time for a couple of cold snaps that we had, so.
Great. So reminder that the cost share program applications are due today. That's somewhat relevant to transportation, but also recreation and conservation and protection of natural resources. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask me. I'm glad to talk about that. As far as construction goes, Beltline Trail 3A and Girard Connection continued construction, and the Energy Board did award construction for Beltline Trail Phase 4. So that'll start construction The contractor asked to accelerate construction in front of the stated initiation date, so I'll work with them and get that going as soon as possible. There are 2 additional federal aid projects, the Sorensen connection west from 72nd, and then the Millard connection. And both of those, I guess I want to talk more with MAPA. Do you have any comments about availability of previously allocated but not yet obligated funding? I mean, I've heard rumors about availability of funding and maybe some of the stuff is not going to be available.
So our understanding is that when it comes, there's less of a concern about formula funds, but I mean, it's true of federal funding that when we get beyond the existing infrastructure law, like that's not set in stone anyway. And I mean, we do tend to program outside of beyond those years. So yeah, if you're beyond 2026, it's always technically a question mark. I guess maybe it's a little bit more in question now. But our understanding, the way that we're operating is that for formula funds, those projects should be moving forward, even if they're not necessarily obligated yet. But I mean, it still is a bit of an unknown. I don't know if NUT has any additional, or if that's about the same.
I mean, that's pretty fair. I was gonna speak to it a little bit. Quick preface, this has not been blessed by Fed Highway or FTA, just my thoughts. Things we're reading from USDOT in terms of guidance and orders. Yeah, if there are emphasis areas from the previous administration on things that conflict with current priorities, DEI, climate change, these sorts of things, they're gonna be held under more scrutiny. This goes for planning, construction, everything. So I've been talking with Carlos Court, others about specific language being used in documents. Just be thoughtful about that, because those things are gonna have to eventually go in front of a federal agency for approval. And they may or may not be inclined to actually say yes. I don't know if that speaks to exactly the type of projects you're asking about, trails and everything else. I would hope there would still be funding opportunities for all of these things. But yes, to Court's point, I think we have to be mindful about the current administration's priorities. They're focusing far more on safety and economic benefit, economic return, than they are on, again, a lot of those previous emphasis areas of climate change, equity, bike infrastructure, these sorts of things. Something we have to be aware of.
And Court, to be clear, when you said formula, that does mean TAP,
STDG,
or both.
and carbon, so those are, it's because they're formulaic in nature, there's a specific amount that is apportioned to each state, and then there's a breakout that goes to urbanized areas, whereas discretionary programs, the things that you would apply directly to the federal government for, those are much more, there's a lot less local control over those kinds of, how those funds are spent. Like, we make decisions here at TTAC, and then they go to the MAPA Board about how a region spends SDBG, TAP, and carbon reduction program, whereas we don't make those same decisions about discretionary programs. We don't have a.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction. Discretionary funds, whether that be grants or earmarks, congressionally directed spending, those things are definitely under more scrutiny than formula funding.
But SDBG, TAP, and CRP are all
formula, but they're also tied to, right, they're tied, currently they're tied to the IIJA Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It remains to be seen what a new transportation law will look like. But I mean, I don't actually know when the surface transportation program was started, but I don't actually know the history of the program, but it's been around for quite a long time. And the TAP set aside has been around for quite a long time. So, but I would say that anything is possible, but historically, those programs have been, they're long lived.
Yeah, and so I mean, I guess the main point here is that we have projects that have not yet submitted forms to initiate with NDOT. We're waiting on the other federal projects to move forward. So I guess I'm cautious about initiating a project. There's a chance that later this year or next year, maybe it gets readjusted and we end up not able to get the construction money, which means we would then owe back the design money.
But the design money, so that will change with IIJA. And there is not a requirement to pay back the design funding. So that shouldn't be an issue, and like as far as what the way that MAPA is operating is, go ahead and proceed with your formula funded federal aid projects. But, you know, we're gonna continue to monitor the situation, and let everybody know kind of where that sits, but I would say you should still be submitting your documentation to NDOT to get those projects moving forward.
Any additional comments on that? That sound right?
I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, then I guess, yeah, the other ones are moved far enough along that we anticipate initiating 2 additional federal aid projects that are currently listed, so.
Current funding bill expires late summer next year. Everything we're hearing is it is full speed ahead in the current Congress to develop a new spending bill rather than a CR. So to have a new spending bill ready to go next year.
That would be nice.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I mean, that's what we're hearing.
Is there a bracket on that? Like. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, Miller Connection has an existing interlocal between the NRD and the city of Omaha, and there's been discussion with the airport about the property ownership there, so we plan to begin that, I guess, in the near future. And then Sorensen Connection will begin as well, because I can handle both of those, so. Great, appreciate the clarification. I know I've asked about this a bunch of times, but the uncertainty there has been significant risk to us on, we don't want to end up in a project that we don't get to see all the way to the end, so. All right, thanks very much.
From the City of Omaha Planning Department, no specific transportation updates. I will mention though that our comprehensive plan values will be going to City Council in May, and that will kind of set the tone for the rest of our comprehensive planning throughout 25 and into 26.
Nothing from over here.
Guess I'm the lone public works rep from Omaha, but I won't attempt to speak to everything. We got a lot of signal work going on this year, about 125 signals for the summer, so lots going on there, but I guess if anybody else has any questions about a specific project, I'll try to answer, but I'll just leave it at that.
One update, I already said most of what I was gonna say, but talked a lot about the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator as we were leading up to our application in January. We're being told that they were going to re-release the NOFO for that, so applications will have to be resubmitted again to account for new priorities. Fortunately, when we worked with HDR and MAPA and jurisdictions on our application, we kind of planned ahead for that, so we won't have a lot to change about our application. We did not include a lot of those what are now taboo terms. We focused on what we thought would be the priorities, and we guessed right for the most part. So we will be resubmitting. I think it's more important now than ever that we get that designation, because this administration is obviously moving away from discretionary awards, and they are going to push more and more into federal loaning programs. And it will be a tremendous resource both to us and our local jurisdictions to have that expertise through that program if we get it. And legislation that allows us to take advantage.
We did receive bids on West Graham, favorable bids, so we'll look to award that in April. So spending the money.
Excellent.
How favorable?
Uh,
Just from a percentage wise.
I would say close to 10% under estimate.
We've had tremendous bids this year, just incredible. So thrilled to say that.
Well,
It's like the airport taking all the concrete.
I'm not sure what to attribute it to, but we have had tremendous bidding atmosphere. Really great.
I saw this thing, we did $1.5 million project at Miller for paving out there, 15% below. Yes.
Wow.
We've been just getting sloppy, maybe.
Conservative.
Too conservative, sorry.
Sloppy, Alex. You work on your political delivery, young man.
I want
What do you got for us today?
to. Okay, I'll start with one we're done. 204th from Harrison to Dodge. You get that pretty much all, it's all done now. You wouldn't know it, I'm driving through there now, all the work going on, but it's not us. We're done.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I like to scratch them off like this. Now that we've made it to Dodge Street, we're still working on that. Skyline Drive, we got a little bit of work to do there. What we're gonna do is go down to 180th interchange and do exactly what we did at 168th. So that'll be starting up here real quick. And then this staying on Dodge Street, we've got on the 192nd Dodge, the divergent diamond. We looked to finish that in August.
Good one. Are you gonna anticipate doing a press release or some sort of a thing to teach people how to drive? I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny, but
I know.
there's a few of you in this room that are old enough to remember when we opened the first single point urban interchange at 132nd, or I'm sorry, 144th and Dodge, and people had no idea what to do. We had police out there and cones, and people were directing. I mean, it took a little while for people to figure it out.
Oh, that's Barbara about it.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, okay.
It is a little different with the divergent diamonds, like being on the opposite side.
Yeah.
I've experienced like 3 of them in the last year in my travels this year. But they're pretty when you're in them, there's no other way to
Yes,
go.
I
agree, but you can't fix stupid.
Well, we're 25 to 30 years into roundabouts in this area. People are still sharing their displeasure with me about them being confusing.
No, and I totally agree. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes, even single lane ones. There's people that are driving roundabouts that weren't even born when the first roundabout was in, and they're still.
Well, speaking of roundabouts, we're gonna build one out there. About 275 and Dodge Street, right where you go in, where they got that 4-way stop now.
Oh, yes.
They're gonna make that.
I was at that public meeting.
Yeah. So that'll be going on this year.
And that's gonna be closed for those of you that don't know that. It's gonna be closed to through traffic from all directions.
Yes. Let's see, another one, Highway 75 from 34 to Q. That's all night work. Will be done shortly. They're gonna put some concrete seal around it. They're doing that at night. All the other stuff is done. Diamond grinding, pavement repairs. The Missouri River Bridge, the one over the river that was started last fall, and that's kicking off. Plus, we got another one that butts up into it from 12th to Missouri River. And they were gonna start that last week, but wind and snow. No, we can't close the Dodge Street exit with the snow coming. So westbound 480 at Dodge Street, that off ramp will be closed. But I think they'll probably set that up Sunday night.
I was on the news a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So you have to go down to 12th or 14th, you go get off around town. We're almost done with the westbound 680 to Q Street. We all that amounts to is striping now. That'll be nice for it. I don't know if you noticed, but we're doing some high mast tower replacements and several interchanges. See, I-80 and L, 680 in Pacific, Fort 133, and I-480 and 30th Street. We're taking down the old mast towers, and we're putting up shorter ones, but more of them. And then there's another one tied to that, 72nd on 680, 72nd Highway 75 and Mormon Bridge exit. They'll be getting new towers. That's that, what we got started coming up. 31st, westbound 80Q to Childs. We're adding lanes and widening the bridge down there. And with that, we're also gonna do the westbound off ramp to Highway 50. That will all start 31st. Let's see, we got some more Dodge Street jobs coming. Highway to Dodge Street, 161st to 127th. We'll be doing pavement repairs, mill and overlay, the main line eastbound and westbound, that'll be night work. April 1st start. So another Dodge Street project, 156th to 132nd. That's April 21st, and what we're doing there is what we've done on 168th and 108th. Same thing. We're actually working on the bridge side. So there'll be lane closures and shifts. See how that goes. I've got a couple of small ones. The Highway 50 and 31 intersection. Out there just north of the river. We're gonna widen that intersection. And that shows you where that. Oh, no, there's another job on 275. It's not the roundabout. It's just a pavement repair, concrete ceiling, and repair the high friction surface on the viaduct by Waterloo. So, but that's not connected to the roundabout. That's a separate project. So that's it.
Carlos, do you have anything?
I think the next slide, and Jim's gonna present.
Yeah, so Iowa traffic count, the data is available for the Southwest region, so that's all of our MPO and surrounding counties. The Iowa DOT sent us a notification. They've historically made traffic count maps that are available in PDF format. They're going to discontinue that, but they provided that historical data in a tab on their traffic count on their GIS page. We do have data from them because there were some projects that really needed it. So it's not yet updated in this map viewer, but if you do have a need for local counts, we can help you with that, and the interstate and the primary system should be available soon as well. That's what I have.
Anyways, it's very exciting.
Wonderful. Is there any updates from the back there? Any other updates, I should say? Is there any additional business? That's the last item we have on our agenda. Any additional business that anybody would like to cover or bring up? Seeing no hands or no nodding heads, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion. Motion, well, I'll second that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed may stay as long as you want. Thanks for out there.